we're going to talk about forgotten scandals. And when I say forgotten scandals, I don't mean that you have forgotten all these. Maybe you have. Maybe you've forgotten all. Maybe you've forgotten some. Maybe you want to forget them. You know, we look back on things like Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. We look back on things like the COVID tyranny. And the truth is, it's human nature. I have this too. You have this too. To want to move on when things are painful. Do you have painful memories in your life? Of course you do. Everybody does. That's part of life. You like to sit around dwelling on them? No. You want to move on. And I understand that. I understand that about you. I understand that about me. But here's the thing. We have moved on too many times in this country from political scandals. Powerful people in the government, politicians, bureaucrats, whoever they may be, they use their political office, do something terrible with it, and then slowly you'll get an investigation, some documents end up getting revealed. Years later, people will do a report, I'll come on television and talk about it. But by then, the outrage of that particular thing has kind of been turned way down and everybody just kind of wants to move on. We have bigger fish to fry. Haven't you heard about inflation? But let me tell you something. There is nothing criminals love more than the feeling people just want to move on. Think about the mafia, Italian mafia. Think about the Gambino family right now. Think how lovely it would be if they woke up one morning and found out, oh, well, look at this. The Department of Justice, the NYPD, all these guys, they're tired of talking about our crimes. They're ready to move on. Criminals love the idea of moving on. And criminals inside of our government love that you and I move on. They know they can do horrible things, drag things out, and people will just move on eventually because we're too busy. There are too many scandals. Everyone has a phone. There's a new scandal coming down. And they know that eventually you are going to be tempted to just say, oh, gosh, can't we just move on? That's music to the ears of a criminal. I will not move on. Maybe it's a Kelly thing. Maybe it's my Irish heritage. I don't know. But I haven't moved on from the President of the United States of America telling me he was losing patience with me.
Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. I know that was one press conference. I know you probably have moved on from it, not dwelling on it. I want you to just take a moment with me and dwell on that, just that moment right there. The President of the United States of America is not a king. He's not a dictator. He's not a czar. He is a servant of the people, the top executive for sure, but you are not a subject. You realize that. You are a citizen. It's a huge difference. You are not underneath the President of the United States of America. He cannot give you commands. He doesn't get to tell you what to do, where to go, where to live, not in a free country. And he most definitely should never feel comfortable standing in front of the American people and telling them how impatient he was getting with them. With the little threat built in there, you could almost feel it. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. Oh, really, Mr. President? What do you plan on doing to us when your patience runs completely out? I haven't let it go. I haven't let go of the fact that these people have used the forces of government to attack their political opponents. In my mind, I believe that should come with life imprisonment or the death penalty. The director of the Central Intelligence Agency, director of the FBI, getting together with the president to cook up some fake intelligence in order to torpedo the incoming Republican president is a crime that should come with capital punishment or life in prison. I genuinely believe that all the way. That is taking critically important positions in the government and using it for evil. And I mentioned it already. Let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about the fact that the land of the free turned into a communist dictatorship where you were told where to go, what to eat, where you're not allowed to eat, what you have to wear. These people forced you. In some cases, many cases, people lost their jobs if they weren't injected with something completely experimental. They didn't even know if it worked or not. And of course, we now know it lasts about as long as fruit stripe gum, if it works at all. And yet the United States government, the medical community, our major corporations, institution after institution, the elites in this society smashed normal people during COVID, and now no one wants to talk about it anymore. No one wants a reckoning. Everybody wants to move on. Oh, Jesse, it's too much. Can't we just move on? I want to move on. I'm not ready to move on. How about the Federal Bureau of Investigation going to Facebook and telling them to censor a story about Hunter Biden, one they knew was true?
The FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
People should go to prison for that. We are going to talk about these scandals. We're going to talk about not moving on. Oh, that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am most definitely right.
You really should, in an indoor setting, a congregate setting, be wearing masks. It's just the appropriate thing to do to protect yourself and your family.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
Ivermectin is something more often used to deworm horses.
If we really do our part, stay at home, social distance, then we can flatten our curve even below those projections. But it really depends on all of us.
I'm making the personal sacrifices not to infect my parents and my pregnant daughter. I worry about that because then it gives people the option to say, well, if bars and restaurants are open, then I can have 20 people over for Thanksgiving. And so I don't like it to be any number. I like it to be keep it to your immediate household.
I haven't let it go. I hope you haven't let it go. A relentless assault on your liberty. Just evil was done to the society, and people need to be punished for it. Joining me now, maybe the best person probably I've ever talked to on this stuff is Jeffrey A. Tucker. He authored the book Life After Lockdown, which still gets me steamed when I think about reading it. I highly recommended it. Jeffrey, we lived under tyranny for a period of time, and I do feel like a lot of people, understandably, just kind of want to let it go. They want to forget about it. They want to move on. I can't. I guess I'm just not like that. I can't let it go.
It was a totalitarian, dystopian nightmare of unmitigated evil emanating from the top of society. We've yet to entirely figure out who or what or why. But even at the time, plenty of people figured out that what was going on was not normal. It was inconsistent with all rights and liberties in Western tradition. It was a CCP style regime that lasted a year or two or three. In many ways, we're still living in the aftermath of it. And we absolutely need to revisit this, figure it out, see what's going on. I feel like we're coming to this moment culturally where it's becoming more permissible. Just last night, I saw the new movie Edington. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's not appearing in any of the posh theaters in rich neighborhoods because it is absolutely brutal in its truth-telling about these times, about how it divided our communities and how we were all being played by very powerful forces to shatter our lives and to self-immolate and essentially destroy everything that civilization has to offer. This is where Fauci led us. This is where the national security state led us. This is where big tech and big media and big medicine, they were all involved, and the academy absolutely shut up about it and just let it go on and on. So there's a lot of people that need to pay a heavy price for this. Arrests would be nice, accountability of some sort, or even just figuring out what the heck happened between February and August of 2020 and following, where the kids were sacrificed. But I'll stop. But I'm as outraged as you are, Jesse, and I'm so grateful that you're continuing to visit this issue.
No, you don't need to stop, Jeffrey. I'm worried that we're going to stop. And you mentioned it was so true that it was a CCP style thing. And I'll tell you, this is something I still can't wrap my head around. Maybe you can help me with this. I was amazed that not only America's government and at least some percentage of America's people craved that and demanded that instead of craving freedom, going a different route, the freedom route. I can't count how many people, experts said, well, look at what China's doing, as if that was somehow a model for what we should be doing. And the American people who accepted it, I guess, I hate to sound like a father, I'm disappointed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I do understand your point. There was a red guard that arose among us, mostly consisting of the professional, educated, well-to-do classes that were entitled to stay at home and they want to stay clean. And they joined in all the state propaganda, throwing people out of grocery stores for not wearing masks, screaming at you because you wouldn't accept a vaccination. Our churches segregated themselves, our cities, New York, Boston, New Orleans, DC, and Seattle, at least those in Portland, I think, all segregated according to vaccination status. Something we thought was gone, 150 years ago, came back with the approval of the New York Times and the Harvard faculty and all of the elites in society. It was left to the working classes, lower classes, and people who do their own research to drive the incredulity and the skepticism and led to an unraveling of all these policies. And that's also fed very much strongly into our politics. In fact, my own view of this, Jesse, is that COVID experience is the prism through which you can pretty much understand everything that's going on in America today. The lack of trust of basically everything. It all began with the COVID period, and we still haven't put our lives back together again. And it's interesting about this Edington movie, which again I encourage everybody to go see. It really does, pick off the scab in a kind of a delightful way. But the New York Times ran an article saying, "Oh, America went mad in 2020, and it's too soon, really, for us to visit those times." Well, I mean, there's a couple of points about that. One is that the New York Times pushed this. I mean, they were the very first media outlet to try to whip up the public into accepting lockdowns. That was February 27th, 2020. But with the reporter Donald G. McNeil's podcast that appeared on that morning, he was later fired from the paper and got a Substack and said that he was being lied to the entire time. I would like to know more about his experiences in that respect. He's a competent reporter, but he played a very evil role in this entire thing. And the second thing to say about Goldberg's point there concerning how it's too soon. Well, wait a minute. Do we have to wait another 10 years, another 20 years? And when is it going to be time to have some accountability explanation, or at least some cultural accounting of how this country descended into totalitarianism to the extreme? I'll tell you one other thing, Jesse, is fascinating to me about this. You've been following all the revelations from Tulsi Gabbard, which were getting drip by drip about what was really going on in 2016 with Russiagate and so on. Well, this ties very closely into the COVID story, which nobody says, but that, as soon as the Russiagate thing was kind of more or less over, COVID came along. But the person running the Justice Department at the time was Rod Rosenstein. All right. So that's now well known. His sister, Nancy Messonnier, was the employee at the CDC who first took it upon herself to brief all the elite media about the coming lockdowns without ever asking permission of the Trump administration. All right. So, Rosenstein, I mean, maybe he's not on speaking terms with his sister. I tend to think that there is a connection there. Nancy Messonnier at CDC was the one who did this, at least probably at the behest of the National Security State, briefed all the media about the coming lockdowns, prepared everything. I'm going to say this is like February 23rd or 24th, 2020. A few days later, they're all drumming it up for lockdowns. It was an attempt to get Trump. They backed Trump into a corner where they basically said, this is going to happen. You can either be left behind or get out in front of it. You chose to get out in front of it, but realized, a few weeks later, certainly by a month later, that he had been, that this was just another chapter in the Russiagate plot. It was an attempt at a coup, essentially. That's what really happened. So I hope before this term is up with Trump, we get some accountability for that, and we get some truth, and we get some honesty about it, because we desperately need it. One of the things that I still just can't believe really happened. Recall in March, we all locked down and all the businesses were destroyed, and our churches were closed. We couldn't have Easter. Then we couldn't even have Christmas much later. But right in the middle of this, this is the summer. We had this weird time where we're all supposed to care desperately and deeply about George Floyd and join the Black Lives Matter movement. You remember all that? And then the protests and the riots and the burnings in the streets, whatever, and Antifa was running around all over the place. So that's a really interesting chapter of this story, because it grew out of the frustration and anger and really psychosis that was imposed by the central authorities on all the American youth, who are forced to sit in their bedrooms for 2 or 3 months scrolling through Instagram and TikTok, and sneaking out at late nights to have socially distanced beer parties and so on. Well, when the opportunity came for them to get out and protest something, so what were the elites telling these young people? Your life is terrible. Your life sucks. You should be angry. What should you be angry at? You should be angry at whiteness. You should be angry at white people. They're the problem. Look at what they did to George Floyd. Join Black Lives Matter, and then you will do some mea culpas for your sins. Black Lives Matter was mostly a white movement, a white progressive movement. But they enlisted all the young people who now had an excuse, finally, to get out and do something with their lives, right? And they were given a purpose, which was abolish the white race. All right. So all of this happened in the seeming blink of an eye. And then, Antifa was all over the place, which we now know, had very strong funding from George Soros. So, there are some very terrible things that happened in that period. And it never really went away. We just kind of lost interest in it in some sense because it was so traumatizing. But like I say, it fundamentally transformed this culture, this country, and not just the U.S., but really all over the world. But the U.S. in particular, because frankly, what happens in America matters a lot more than what happens in Malaysia or whatever, right? So we've got to figure it out here. And it's also arguably true that the virus was originated with the U.S. with a U.S. project, and the lockdowns were an attempt to cover it up. I'm not saying I have the final answers to this, but it seems like more or less that's where we're getting. And if anything I just said is true, we need to know it. So we need hearings, we need trials, we need reports. We don't just need the same old baloney cover up stuff that we get into every other national trauma. We need actual truth, real documents.
Actual action and accountability. You're not wrong. Jeffrey, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.